November 1939. A two-stroke diesel rumble rolls across the frozen cornfields of Illinois. 4 locomotives in forest green and gold, numbered 103, run without water or coal. 15 years later, 40,000 steam locomotives were cut up for scrap. But the man who did it was a baggage clerk. His name was Harold Hamilton. Every freight train you hear at a crossing today runs on the engine he put there. In 1890, in a logging town on the upper Mississippi with fewer than 3,000 people, the sawmills run on steam, and the trains that carry the lumber out run on steam. Harold L. Hamilton is born into the age of coal and water. By his late teens, he is working in the baggage room of the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railway. Then he moves west to the Southern Pacific. He is not an engineer. He does not design locomotives. He handles freight, talks to conductors, watches trains come in and go out, and learns the economics of American railroading from the ground floor. The economics are brutal. A mainline steam locomotive in 1910 is a high-maintenance animal. It drinks 5,000 gallons of water every 100 miles. It burns a ton of coal every 50 miles. Every night, it has to be fed, watered, cleaned, ashed out, and oiled. It is available for revenue service roughly 60% of the time. The other 40% of the time, it is in the shop. On the branch lines, where passenger traffic is thin, the numbers are worse. The railroads are losing money on every timetable. Then, Hamilton sees the alternative. A gasoline-electric motor car, the kind the railroads call a doodlebug. It coughs to life at 5 in the morning, breathes out a cloud of blue exhaust, and earns its keep on routes that have been bleeding the parent railroad for a decade. One self-propelled vehicle, a Winton gasoline engine driving a generator, driving a General Electric traction motor on the axle. No separate locomotive, no fireman, no coaling tower, no roundhouse. One operator, one fuel tank, one vehicle. Hamilton goes to work for Electro-Motive's predecessor operations. He learns the internal combustion side of the business. He learns what the railroads will pay for and what they will not. 1922. Hamilton is 32 years old. In a small office in Cleveland, he and a partner named Paul Turner found the Electro-Motive Engineering Corporation. They have no factory, no assembly line, barely any employees. What they have is an idea no established locomotive builder is taking seriously. They believe the future of American railroading is not in bigger steam engines. It is in engines that burn something else. The business model is radical for the era. Hamilton buys gasoline engines from Winton in Cleveland. He buys electrical equipment from General Electric in Schenectady. He buys carbodies from the St. Louis Car Company in Missouri. His company integrates the three into a finished rail motor car and sells the completed unit to the railroad. By the end of the 1920s, Electro-Motive is one of the few profitable suppliers in a depressed rail industry. By 1930, Hamilton is wealthy. Electro-Motive is profitable, and 500 doodlebugs are running on American rails. But Hamilton already knows what the rest of the industry does not. Gasoline is a dead end. 1930. The Great Depression is killing the American railroad industry. Passenger revenue has collapsed. Freight tonnage is down 30%. Railroad presidents are looking for anything that will cut operating costs, and Hamilton's doodlebugs are one of the few bright spots on any balance sheet. Alfred Sloan notices. That year, General Motors buys Electro-Motive outright. The same month, General Motors also buys the Winton Engine Company that supplies Hamilton's engines. The two acquisitions are deliberate. Sloan wants Hamilton, and he wants the engine factory that feeds him. Hamilton stays on to run the combined operation. For the first time in his career, he has something he has never had before: the full industrial weight of the largest manufacturing corporation in America behind him. Kettering has already done the hard part. Through the 1920s, General Motors research has been refining a lightweight, high-speed, two-stroke diesel that will fit in a bus, a submarine, or a yacht. Something small and light and strong enough to replace the big, slow, heavy diesels that have existed since Rudolf Diesel's first engine in 1897. Hamilton's assignment is to put that engine on rails. The first version is the Winton Model 201A, an 8-cylinder straight diesel producing 600 horsepower, light enough to fit inside a passenger coach. And in 1934, it gets its chance to make history. May 26, 1934. Before dawn in Denver, a brand new train called the Pioneer Zephyr leaves Union Station. Stainless steel, articulated, shovel-nosed, powered by a single 201A diesel buried under the floor of the lead car. It runs non-stop to Chicago. 1,015 miles. 13 hours, 5 minutes. Average speed, 77 miles per hour. Top speed, 112 miles per hour. The longest non-stop run in the history of American railroading. When the Zephyr rolls into the Century of Progress exposition that afternoon, 500,000 people are waiting for it. The press calls it the train of tomorrow. The public falls for it immediately. The railroad industry does not. To a 1934 railroad executive, the Zephyr is a 3-car lightweight passenger stunt, and freight is where the real money lives. Freight means 100-car trains climbing mountain grades behind articulated steam locomotives weighing 700,000 pounds. The conventional wisdom inside every railroad boardroom in America is simple. A diesel that fits under a passenger coach will never pull a 100-car freight train up Tennessee Pass. Hamilton will hear that sentence, in one form or another, every time he walks into a sales meeting for the next 5 years. Hamilton's answer is to commission an engine designed from the ground up for a single job. Marine diesels had been adapted to rails. Truck diesels had been scaled up. Neither worked. Hamilton wants something that exists only to pull American freight, and he wants it engineered that way from the first bolt. In 1938, Electro-Motive Diesel introduces the EMD 567, a 2-stroke V configuration engine with 567 cubic inches of displacement per cylinder. That number is where it gets its name. Purpose-built for railroad service, ruggedized for field maintenance, designed to be rebuilt inside a railroad's own shop rather than shipped back to a factory. The 567 finds its voice on the test stand at LaGrange, a deep, uneven bark on a cold start that settles into the steady, 2-stroke idle every railfan in America will eventually know by sound alone. By autumn 1939, Hamilton's team has bolted 4 of these engines into 4 locomotive carbodies, coupled them together as a single 4-unit set, and painted them forest green and gold. 5,400 horsepower. 1 crew. 1 demonstrator. They are numbered 103. Those 4 locomotives are about to do something no one in the American rail industry believes is possible. Only one of them will survive what comes after. November 1939. The 4-unit set numbered 103 rolls out of LaGrange and begins what is, at that moment, the most important sales tour in American industrial history. Over the next 11 months, those 4 locomotives will operate on 20 different Class 1 railroads across the continental United States. They will cover 83,000 miles. They will pull revenue freight, not demonstration loads, in every climate zone the country has. Summer in the Arizona desert, January in Montana, spring floods in the Mississippi Valley, blizzards over the Rockies. The tour's hardest test comes on Tennessee Pass, the highest mainline rail crossing in the United States, 10,240 feet above sea level at the summit. The Denver and Rio Grande Western has been running steam over it for half a century. 2, sometimes 3 articulated steam locomotives are needed to move a heavy freight train up the grade. Hamilton sends the 4 FT units onto Tennessee Pass in January. They climb it in January, with snow packed around the traction motors and the two-stroke exhaust hanging in the cold air, without stopping once for water. The grade is unrelenting, the weather is hostile, and the engines do not care. They pull steady. The Denver and Rio Grande crews watching from the platform have never seen anything move a train over that mountain without a coaling stop at the summit. The operational numbers the railroads record during the tour are the kind of numbers that end industries. The FT set is available for revenue service 95% of the time. The steam locomotives it replaced are available 60% of the time. Fuel costs run 40 to 60% lower per ton mile. A single FT set runs 1,000 miles between crew changes, where steam had required a fresh locomotive every 100 to 200 miles. And every night, when the steam engines go back to the shop for their mandatory fire cleaning and boiler wash, the FT stays in service. The Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railway does not wait for the tour to finish. In January 1940, 8 weeks into the demonstration, the Santa Fe signs an order for 80 FT units. It is the largest single diesel locomotive order in history up to that point. Then comes Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. The United States enters the Second World War. The War Production Board takes control of American industrial output, including locomotive manufacturing. EMD, which has already proven the FT in service, is assigned almost all new freight diesel production for the duration of the war. Baldwin and Alco, the two largest steam locomotive builders in America, are directed to keep building steam for the war effort. Baldwin alone has built over 70,000 locomotives since 1831. Both companies assume the arrangement is temporary, and that diesel production restrictions will lift when the war ends. Neither understands that a pen stroke inside the War Production Board has just killed them. By 1945, every major American railroad has seen what an EMD diesel can do under the hardest possible operating conditions, running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, moving war material across the continent. The verdict is in long before Baldwin and Alco realize the verdict is being rendered. What happens after 1945 is a massacre. In 1945, American railroads operate roughly 40,000 steam locomotives. By 1960, fewer than 300 are left in revenue service. 100 years of steam engineering, an entire industrial vocabulary, tens of thousands of locomotives, hundreds of thousands of jobs in the steam trade, all of it erased from American railroading in 15 years. The Norfolk and Western, the last major holdout, runs its final steam locomotive in 1960. The age of coal and water is over. Hamilton had won, and in winning, he had modernized an industry that was already dying. Through the 1950s and into the 1960s, the American railroad industry enters a long, unbroken decline. The interstate highway system, signed into law by President Eisenhower in 1956, pulls high-value freight off the rails and onto long-haul trucks within a decade. The Interstate Commerce Commission freezes railroad freight rates at levels set during the Depression, while fuel and labor costs triple. Passenger traffic collapses as Americans buy 2 car garages and Boeing 707s fly coast to coast in 5 hours. By the late 1960s, the railroads that had bought Hamilton's locomotives by the thousand are running them across track, so undermaintained that trains derail at 20 miles an hour on what used to be main lines. On June 21st, 1970, the Penn Central Transportation Company files for bankruptcy. It is the largest corporate bankruptcy in American history up to that point. Penn Central is a merged giant, the combined weight of the old New York Central and the Pennsylvania Railroad, 2 of the most storied railroads in American industry. Its collapse nearly takes the Northeast Corridor with it. Baldwin Locomotive Works, which had built over 70,000 locomotives since 1831, builds its last one in 1956 and exits the business. The American Locomotive Company, ALCO, hangs on longer, building diesels under a General Electric licensing agreement before closing its Schenectady plant for good in 1969. Harold Hamilton dies in 1969 at age 79, in the same year ALCO's Schenectady plant closes for the last time. He has lived long enough to see diesel reach total dominance. He has also lived long enough to watch the industry that bought his locomotives begin its slide toward federal bailout, and the Conrail merger that would rescue what was left of Northeast railroading in 1976. He is remembered by rail historians and almost no one else. And what of the four demonstrators? Unit numbers 103A, 103B, 103C, and 103D. The locomotives that had convinced 20 American railroads to buy diesel. After the tour, Hamilton sold the demonstrator set to the Southern Railway. Renumbered and repainted, they worked Appalachian coal drags for the next 2 decades. Then, one by one, as newer EMD models came off the LaGrange production line, they were retired. 3 of the 4 were cut up for scrap. Only one, 103A, survives. Today, it sits at the Museum of Transportation in St. Louis, Missouri. Paint weathered, engine silent. The other 3 are the ones that made Hamilton right. The ones that proved the industry wrong on Tennessee Pass and in every other state they rolled through. They were melted down for scrap after the coal drags were done with them. Post-war America needed a lot of refrigerators, but the company Hamilton built did not die. Between 1935 and 2005, Electro-Motive Diesel built more than 70,000 diesel-electric locomotives, more than any other builder in the world. Hamilton's factory at LaGrange shipped engines to Canada, Mexico, Brazil, Australia, and the coal fields of Britain. American diesel technology became the operating standard on every continent except Antarctica. The 567 engine itself never really died. In 1965, EMD introduced the 645, a heavier-duty successor sharing the 567's 2-stroke V configuration and most of its internal geometry. In 1984, the 710 arrived, built on the same engineering bones, displacing 710 cubic inches per cylinder. A freight locomotive manufactured in America in 2025 still runs on an engine architecture Hamilton commissioned in 1938. Every time a 100-car freight climbs a grade in Wyoming, every time a mixed manifest rolls through a small-town crossing at 2 in the morning, the engine you hear is the mechanical grandchild of the prime mover Hamilton's team, bolted into the 4 units numbered 103. The modern 710 speaks in its grandfather's voice. Casey Jones, the steam engineer who died in a wreck at Vaughn, Mississippi in 1900, became a folk hero. His name was sung in vaudeville houses and roadhouses for 70 years. Harold Hamilton, who made Casey Jones's entire profession obsolete, has no song. But every American freight train running tonight is Hamilton's monument. In St. Louis, Unit 103A still stands at the Museum of Transportation, paint weathered, engine cold, the first surviving member of the 4-unit set that rewrote American railroading. At the Illinois Railway Museum, an hour northwest of Chicago, preserved EMDF units, E units, and GP7 locomotives roll on heritage track under their own power, 70 and 80 years after they were built. Across the country, a small community of rail fans can identify an EMD prime mover by ear at a mile's distance. The 567s, the 645s, the 710s, each with its own voice, each with its own idol. The preservation societies keep these machines running for a reason that has nothing to do with profit and everything to do with memory. Hamilton built something that outlasted him, outlasted the railroads that bought it, and will outlast every one of us listening now. We lose locomotives to scrap. We lose builders to bankruptcy. We lose the men who build them to obituaries nobody reads. What we do not lose at least not yet, is the sound of a two-stroke diesel on a cold morning, unchanged since 1938, still running on grades Hamilton never saw.